This week's podcast is a special one. I have Dr. Craig Duncan with me. He goes on about the preparation of teams for any competition is a balancing act between maximising capacity and managing the noise. And he talks about many coaches and performance scientists focus on capability building, but he's about the noise, the fatigue, both physiologically and psychologically, that impacts players. He talks to us about noise management and how to get more out of yourself every day.
Welcome to the Body Science Podcast, bringing you everything you need, want and should know about health, fitness, nutrition and training. As always, the information contained in this podcast is for the information purposes only and is not designed to diagnose or be prescriptive to treat, prevent or manage any injury, disease or other health-related condition.
Today's podcast is brought to you by the new Clean Coffee TX100. It's coffee done smarter, supercharged with brain, mood, metabolism, performance and gut-boosting ingredients. We've combined the incredibly smooth taste of Colombian single-origin coffee with MCTs, apple cider vinegar and Blue Ness, the ultimate stress-relieving herb. It's keto and vegan-friendly, gluten-free with no added sugars or artificial sweeteners. Enjoy hot or cold and take your coffee to the next level.
Welcome to Body Science HQ, the home of Fit, Happy and Healthy. And today I'm really excited to have Dr. Craig Duncan on board. Dr. Craig, we're going to call you that, Dr. Craig?
You can call me Craig, please.
Craig was named Sports Scientist of the Year back in 2014 with ESSA, is that correct?
Yeah, with ESSA, yeah.
That's a nice little badge to have on your chest there, mate.
Yeah.
People who know Craig from the industry, he is one of the leading sports scientists in Australia, up there with some of the other people in sport that we've spoken to recently. It's a small group, but it's a great group of people to be involved with. Craig has a passion for safe professional ethics in the industry, which is something that a lot of people are talking to me more and more about these days, is the ethics of the industry. He's got an innovative and holistic approach to player management, which has enabled him to actually create for teams and franchises a high-performance platform that maximises performance. So Craig has worked with Sydney FC, Western Wanderers. You are the first Asian champions.
Yeah, we won Asian Champions League when we were at Western Sydney Wanderers. Yeah.
Nice. You were with the State of Origin team for their drought-breaking series win in 2014.
Yes, and 2018 we won again. Yeah.
I'm a Queenslander, mate. We don't really remember those days.
Yeah.
And the big one that I know you most for is your time with the Socceroos and becoming Asian champions in 2015. So in the academic arena, you still play in that area and you've developed a postgraduate degree in...
Yeah, we had a couple of postgraduate degrees at ACU, which is the Masters of High Performance Sport and also the Graduate Certificate in Performance Analysis that I was involved in the development of. Nice.
Well, mate, that's a little bit high-tech for us today. So we're going to talk about some really simple topics. Well, they're not simple, they're very technical, but you've turned them into something of a state of an art with maximize performance. We're going to talk about sleep and recovery. And let's be honest, everyone's talking about that right now, but we're also going to talk about morning rituals with you. And that's the big thing, because statistically in Australia, after a bad night's sleep, Australian adults report that they are 52% less motivated. 49% of them say they look tired, so they're not happy with the way they look and the way they feel. The way they feel, 46% of them said they're more moody and irritable, and 42% of them said they can't concentrate. So let's be honest, sleep recovery and morning rituals. Let's talk morning rituals.
Well, I think morning rituals start with a great foundation of sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we don't have the sleep right, our morning, doesn't matter what we're going to do in the morning, we're going to struggle. And I think sleep is a real issue. And look, it's become quite trendy at the moment, hasn't it? Yeah, that everyone's talking sleep recovery, but I'm not sure if we really understand how big a problem it is. There's no doubt that there's maybe up to 20% of the population has real chronic sleep issues. And then all we have to do is talk around our friends and see that not many of them are getting 7 to 8 quality hours of sleep a night. And it's such an issue now that even shift work is now a risk factor for disease. So it's been identified that there's quite a link between poor sleep and a number of adverse health conditions, and it's something that we really need to rectify. So the morning ritual, it starts way back when we go to sleep. So I suppose it's evening rituals that we have to work on, and leading up to that sleep time is just so important. And this day and age when we've got so much technology going on, not frying our brains, but making us think more and more as when we're meant to be calming down, it starts to be a problem. And the tech isn't going away.
That's a big one, isn't it, the tech?
And it's not going to go away, so we need to embrace that.
Yep.
But there are some things that we can do to start off our sleep sort of process right. So
how would you've got a travelling team, you've got 30 men that are running around, they're away from their family, they're probably, let's use, can we talk about Socceroos?
Yeah.
So let's talk about Socceroos. You just went to Russia and played
World Cup. Yep.
How did you get these guys, for one, they're on the other side of the world, they're eating different food, they're in different beds. What do you bring to a sporting team or to a group of men that need to win in relation to that ritual?
It is a real. I mean, the Socceroos is one of the most travelled sporting teams in the world, and we have had a lot of experience with the difficulties. And it wasn't. I mean, the World Cup was one, but I suppose one of the most interesting ones when we didn't qualify straight away for the 2018 World Cup, and we had to go through playing Syria and Malaysia, and then we had to go to Honduras and play away there. So there's so much issues going on. For one, you're coming from different time zones, and you might arrive on a Monday and have to play on a Thursday. So there's not that time to really adapt to the time zone. But it is a matter of, as soon as we possibly can, getting into sync with that, and then flying out on a Thursday, and then having to get, like from Honduras, having to get back to Australia and play again on a Tuesday. So there's a lot of things that go into play in that. I think one of the most important is that your players believe in you, that you've done your research, that you have a plan in place, and that's only a travel plan getting to the location, and then getting into a sleeping plan as soon as possible. And look, we always sleep better if we're relaxed, and I think that's one of the most important parts of the puzzle. And putting in known strategies to make sure that we can get to sleep on time.
So you work a lot in the corporate world as well? Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah.
So how do you take what you learnt from your time with the Socceroos and State of Origin teams and sporting teams and the ongoing research you do yourself, and how do you take that to a corporate and implement change? And we're talking about change, the morning ritual change, the sleep, and why does an executive need to sleep and recover?
Well, I think executives may be even more important than players, because if we're looking at companies where decisions are being made, financial decisions are being made, deals are being done, and there's a lot of people at risk. If we're talking shareholders, we're talking employees, so that executive team has a lot of responsibility. I think the performance from the field into the office and to the corporate sector is very, very similar.
Okay.
And I think we talk wellness, and we talk about all that sort of area, but I think executives and a lot of people, entrepreneurs, etc., they want to perform. And working at that cutting edge of performance in sport, where there's big money at play, there's sponsorships, etc., you learn to get people to perform very well. And that's why it's important with executives. Executives burning the candle at both ends, at the end of the day, it's going to be only a short term before problems start to arise.
And I think it's that classic, an executive is pretty much an 8-hour athlete, aren't they? When you look at...
Well, there's that whole area that was spoken about in the early 2000s about when it was first identified about the corporate athlete. And I think it's a very important part that we need to look at. And they definitely are. And I think most corporate people and business people that have been successful, they've got very similar personality qualities to athletes. They're competitive, they're determined, and they're motivated. So let's work inside that and to get them to perform to their optimum.
So if I'm an executive or an athlete, and let's jump back on an overseas trip. I've got a young group of guys that have gone overseas. You've landed at some stupid hour. You need to align to the local time. How are you getting a group of people to... And I guess what we're talking about here is we've got problems like jet lag. We've got all these different body clocks, all these issues.
Circadian rhythm.
Yeah. So are you putting someone to bed at 12 o'clock in the morning and trying to turn them upside down when they're away? And should executives look at these type of theories when they're around travel and when they're around large parts of their life as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Putting in a travel plan is 100% required.
Yep.
And it can start 2 to 3 days before that you actually leave, and to start working on getting into the time zone where you're going to go. It depends how long you're going to be there. You might stay, if you're going from Sydney and you're flying across and you're only there for a couple of days, you might stay in a Sydney time zone, or you're going to adjust to where you have to. I mean, we have to, look, there's a science of adjusting to time zone, and then there's a reality. That it's no point staying on one time zone if you've got a meeting and you've got to be prepared at 9 a.m. in the morning at your location time. So how are we going to get there? So very much it can start early on, and then it's all about light and being exposed to light, and there's times when you need to be exposed to the light. So one of the most important things, if you arrive after a long flight in the early morning, you're very, very tired, but the biggest thing you need to do is just get out. Exercise really helps, and to stay awake as long as possible. You might have an afternoon nap for half an hour, but what you don't want to do is extend that too long, so the sleep pressure when you really want to get to sleep is lessened by an extended nap. So what you need to do is just get out, be active. We know that really helps. Stay out in the light, and then try and stay awake as long as possible to get into that. First couple of days, you still might wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's okay. But as time goes on, we'll adjust quite quickly.
And look back to morning rituals, how do we treat, like, that's your landing day, you've landed, don't go to bed early, try and do some exercise in the morning. How do we, as an individual, set a morning ritual? What type of things should we be looking at in the morning on a day where we've travelled, or a day where we've second day of travel or third day of travel, whatever it is, to get that ritual? Like, I really want to dig into the ritual side.
Well, I think rituals start, what is your ritual? It doesn't matter where you are. Like, I can share what I do. The first thing that I always do is make the bed.
Okay.
It's an interesting one. I've read it previously, and it happens a lot in the military. But if you make your bed, it's an outstanding ritual to get into, because it doesn't matter what else happens in the day, you've had success straight away.
See, I thought my wife was just all over me to make the bed in the mornings, but obviously there's a theory. She's a cyclist, so she gets up a lot earlier than I do. Okay, so I make the bed. That's a good one. What else?
So you make the bed, so it doesn't need to be perfect or anything like that, but you've made the bed, and that's it. Now, we have rituals that we don't even think about. We brush our teeth and that sort of thing. But what we can do is, can we start off making our bed? We can start off with being some activity, and it could be some really basic activity. It could be just doing 5 or 6, 7 push-ups, 10 push-ups, something like that, just what we call like a primer, just to get you up and about. Then you might go about your consistent routines, brushing your teeth, getting ready, etc. Even people might first go into the shower, and the last 10 seconds of that, they might make it cold. So then you're awake, you're ready.
Okay. I don't know how many people are doing that. I like that one.
More substantial routines would then go into using a journal. I'm a very big person of enjoying and seeing the value of journaling.
And what type of things should I look for in a journal?
It depends. There's a number of journals around. Some might have a prompt for you to think about, or as you get more experience in your journal, you might just identify a regime or a strategy you want to go. Like often, like this morning when I wrote in my journal, 3 things that I'm grateful for.
Okay. And
starting off the day from that, what do I want to achieve in the day? And then from that perspective, then I can go into it. Into the day where I've got some sort of plan. See, the problem is, Greg, is that a lot of us just get up just in time to get the transport to work, and we're not really thinking about anything.
And hating life, man. Like, there's so many people I talk to now have anxiety and stress. Like, it's driven from, non-combined goals, in my opinion. Like, you're working for someone you hate, yet you want to do all these things in your own life. And this is why I like this. When you said you want to talk about sleep recovery and morning rituals, and I like the idea of, because I'm an old guy, so I've got some old rituals that I deal with, but it's really interesting things that you've said to me so far, and I'd like to keep talking about this. Like a journal, I don't use a journal, but I do every morning have my little ritual that I do where I say thank you for things that I've got and stuff like that. And I've spoken to a few people on the podcast about what I do. But it's really interesting. You've said get up, do a little bit of exercise, just get your blood flowing. Talk about dropping the hot water at the end of your shower just to stimulate yourself. And then you've talked about your use 3.
Yeah, look, there's a that's one way, like being grateful. Like, it's very hard to be grateful and angry at the world at the same time.
So I like that. I do. So what type of things do you write, if you don't mind sharing with us, in a journal about what's an example of something you've been grateful for in your journal?
Well, obviously we're always going to be grateful for our family. I'm very fortunate to have a great family, great life in that respect. But they're the easy ones. So today I wrote it that I was thankful that I have the opportunity to fly here and talk to you.
Wow, nice. I like that.
Like, because I have a wonderful life, but even me, if I'm too caught up in my own difficulties, and which don't really exist. I mean, you just said a lot of people are stressed and that sort of stuff. I'm one of those potentially stressed people, but life is better than it's ever been. I don't think we really understand it. How easy is our life now? I understand that it's difficult, and I'm not suggesting it's not, that there are difficulties, but let's take it back a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, just simple things. Information is so accessible. We've got food and we've got water. You know, there's places around the world where people have to walk 5 miles to get water.
Absolutely.
So if we're in Australia and we're thinking that life is tough, I think it gets back to really let's trying to be grateful. Every one of us can be more grateful for what we have. So I also said today I was grateful for my animal, the dogs that I have.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd have to have a look what else
so,
I wrote.
So for you, it's things that eternally give you that reason to do what you do. Like, it's that true love of what you have around you.
And it could be something so simple.
And it doesn't need to be a shiny car or this or that. It's the things that are it's your tribe. It's the people around you that...
Absolutely. And keeping it focused on, okay, what do I want to achieve today? Like, I want to have a good conversation here. Yep. Everyone that you meet, you might have an option that you don't want to complain today.
Yep.
That's what you want to achieve. It's so easy to complain. We just get into these habits that can be quite negative. And
is that the importance of having a ritual? Is that why a ritual is? It's that stop and think.
Absolutely. And even if we're talking about journaling, even if you find it difficult, and a lot of people find it difficult, it's your story. And just think that in 50 years' time, 100 years' time, your journals there's going to be people that want to know about you.
Absolutely.
Long after we're gone. See, I think one of the fundamental problems with the human race is that we don't really realize that we're going to die.
Well, it doesn't make for a good Instagram post, does it?
No, but the only thing sure we know is that we will.
Yeah, exactly.
So rather than, I actually believe we've got to embrace death to really live our life.
Yep.
Because otherwise, if tomorrow is the last, if right now, today is my last day, am I going to spend that whinging about, that my boss doesn't look after me really well?
Yeah.
That's what we really have to do. It's not negative. It's people freak out when you talk about death. All of us do. Wow. But it's true. That's going to happen. We don't know when it is. And once you start to realize that, then I think you can start to really live your life. You won't take these moments for granted. You won't look too far ahead, because too far ahead mightn't exist.
Yeah.
And that's where, if you stop and reflect in the morning with your journal, and I'd suggest to anyone, try it for 30 days. Mm-hmm. Try it for 10 days. I don't mind. And I don't care what your journal looks like, because I think I always talk a lot about my work about performance X, because the X is the individual.
Yes.
So what works for Craig, what works for Greg, mightn't work for you. So there's no right or wrong in this. So there might be anything. But getting these words down on paper, don't be worried too much what they are, but just spending that time and writing will really benefit you. And then you can go into, look, we know meditation's trendy too.
Yep.
I'd love to be a great meditator. I can't.
A lot of stuff going on in that head.
Yeah, I can't at the moment, but I'm aware enough to know it'll make me better. Mm. And again, with meditation, it's like exercise, it's like nutrition. There is a number of varieties of meditation. You have to find one that works for you.
Yep.
And it might be 2 minutes, it might be 3 minutes. I was speaking to someone the other day about morning rituals, and I said, make your bed, sit on the end of the bed. That's it.
Yep.
2 minutes. Sit there. Don't do anything. Don't do anything. Just close your eyes and sit there. And then that can lead into something else.
Absolutely.
Okay, but what do most of us do? We wake up, first thing we do is look on our phone to see what's happened overnight.
You know, we all know that's so nasty, yet everyone does it.
Everyone, I do it.
Yeah.
But I think we need to get this ritual in before that clouds our mind.
Absolutely.
And also, normally what the last thing, if we're talking evening rituals, the last thing we do is if we're looking at that can cloud your mind. We've all done that where, okay, I take my phone to bed, I'm reading on it, all that sort of stuff, but then we go down that rabbit hole of searching on the net, and before we know it, it's 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
It's going to kill you. Let's be perfectly honest. It will, at the end of the day, it will kill you because it's just too much.
Yeah.
And I'm not anti-technology. I love technology, and we should embrace that and see how fortunate it is. But I think we need to be aware that if we're trying to go to sleep, when we want cortisol to decrease, okay, or the stress hormone, as we call it, just to keep it simple, to decrease, if we're looking at stuff that's going to increase our stress, then how possibly can we get a good sleep?
Yeah. So if you've just mapped out a nice morning ritual there, like how would you combine an evening ritual and a morning ritual with a team of athletes that are traveling and doing what they're doing? Like what are you telling? I mean, your sports science these days is way more than tick and flick and measuring. It's you're mentoring, and you're doing you're selling in the science and the concepts to people all the time, because that's the training. Like, what are you saying to these guys? Like, how are you setting evening, morning rituals for them?
Yeah, I think it is that mentoring and having those conversations. Because again, look, sports science isn't rocket science.
Yeah.
It's not as much as sports scientists might think it is. I don't really believe it is, because I think it has great value. However, it really comes down to that relationship you have with players.
Yeah.
That firstly, they can analyze the situation. If they're not getting good sleep, why aren't they getting good sleep? We know sleep, if they can understand that better the sleep you are, the better you're going to perform. I think most of them understand that. Okay, and then really taking yourself off to bed, and it's working with the individual, Greg. That's the thing. There is no one size fits all in any of this fitness, health, nutrition, exercise, sports science area. I think we need to really work with that individual that, okay, we have those classical things. Try and be off your phone an hour before. One of the great things you can use if you want to be on your phone or you want to watch TV is use blue blocking glasses. They're very simple. Okay. We've used those. Just putting on a pair of these glasses will block out the blue light that we know is a problem for us getting to sleep. So using that, so a lot of the players were really good at using those. So you've got to imagine we're a long way away from home, and it was a really, really tight-knit family, and PlayStation becomes a big part of the...
Yep.
Because you're just in a hotel.
You got time.
So, and they're competitive guys. If they're, trying to get the PlayStation off, so because they're very competitive against each other, but I've got some great pictures of them playing PlayStation with the blue blocking glasses. I mean, that for me that makes me happy, because it's like, they're bought into what we're actually doing. So that sort of stuff. Obviously, you're not having caffeine late in the day. Yep. They're a stimulant that's going to keep you awake.
What time are you trying to turn that off with the team?
It depends on the cycle. And again, look, we know the research would say if you're on a normal sleep-wake cycle, probably after 3 p.m., it's probably too late. Is that reality? Because sometimes I will have caffeine later because I like it. Okay. I'm not going to be so strict on that sort of thing. But we know that is what the science might say. You might talk about the science and be aware, if I'm having coffee at 8 p.m., it's too late. Yeah. Okay. But if I'm having it, let's just be aware of that. So that's an important message to get across. The other big thing, like this is for people at home in general population, and even athletes, even in their hotel rooms, having a clean room.
Okay.
is vital. If you've got a cluttered room, often I think that enhances the clutter of your mind.
Cluttered mind. I can tell when I've got shit lying on the floor at home. It's normally when I'm in a period of
Yeah.
stress or a little bit of anxiety as things approach that
Yeah.
it's always that unknown that makes you a little bit anxiety. And I can definitely see the way I live I try and keep it. I've got a little theory here at work that my desk is clean every night when I go.
Yeah.
You know, like everything's aligned, all the papers I don't need are off it, put away, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's a little thing I do, and that's an interesting thing you say that.
So it's a really important thing, I think, with the bedroom. And if you're in a hotel room, that it's a complete mess,
Yep.
it's going to be difficult to sleep. The other thing is temperature.
Okay.
Yeah, we sleep better when it's colder. Okay, so often with air conditioning and that sort of thing, that it can be in the wrong sort of degrees, but we want it sort of under 20 degrees. Not too cold because we can't sleep there, but
Yep.
under 20 degrees we're going to sleep better.
Okay.
There's some really great technology, particularly with couples, where one might like it warmer, one might like it cooler.
Yep.
And there's some cool technology that actually cools down your side of the bed. So that's
Really?
yeah. That's sort of interesting. And then these.
Are you
these
traveling with that type of technology?
No. But there's cooling mats that can be there as well.
Okay.
We travel. I like to monitor sleep, so using technology to monitor sleep. But then again, am I going to monitor the sleep of an athlete that stresses out because I'm monitoring their sleep?
Yeah, okay.
So you just want to create that relationship where they know they can ask those, not have to do that if that's going to stress. At the end of the day, I only want people to perform.
Yep. What do you think about all this? And I mean, obviously, watches and phones are monitoring how we sleep, and there's a lot of technology out there now. What should people be doing as part of? Is there anything in their morning ritual? Should they be looking at that? Should they?
It's an interesting question. I always say, don't make a decision on how you have slept until you've been awake for half an hour.
Okay. And may I ask why you do that?
Because often you might wake up and think, oh, I feel terrible. But in half an hour, the body has kicked in and you're okay. But if we make that decision and go, oh gosh, I'm really tired, etc., or you've looked on your app that says, oh, I've slept bad, what do you think that's going to do to you psychologically? So even though I do like the technology, I think we need to be aware of that. So
stepping back, it is really important to get up, sit on the edge of the bed, give yourself 2 minutes to think about
just
yourself.
Give yourself time.
Drop a few push-ups, jump in the shower.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, some people, it could be push-ups. It could be jumping on one of those trampolines. It could be something just to prime yourself, just to get up.
Yep.
A lot of people exercise in the morning, and that's fantastic. But I would do that after you've had this time to reflect.
Yeah, get this ritual, like training
Get that
might be
in,
part of that.
and then you might go and train. But don't think just getting up and training. I think we need this space. Yeah. So
it isn't physical you're talking about right now. It's the mental side of waking up, the ritual with the few push-ups or star jumps or whatever it is, the cold shower at the end of a hot shower, the sitting on the bed, the making the bed.
The bed.
And then reflecting. Is that the word you use?
Yeah, reflecting on a journal, writing it down. Because I was thinking about it the other day. What a great thing it would be is to keep this journal for the rest of your life, and you would have a library of your life. It's the story of your life.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, not like a lot of people mightn't think that they want that read, but one of the greatest, one of my favorite books is Meditations by one of the Roman emperors called Marcus Aurelius. Mm-hmm. Meditations was actually his journal.
Is that right?
So they call him one of the last great emperors. So. And he was a Stoic, so he followed the Stoic philosophy, and he kept a journal. And then that was this book called Meditations, and it was now translated, and it's one of the great books to follow, and it's his journal, him writing to himself.
So that book is called
Meditations.
Meditations. We'll put that at the bottom of
I'll get you a copy. You'd like it?
Yeah, I'd like that actually.
Yeah.
But we'll put the link for where people can go to get that.
It's a bit hard to read, but you will enjoy it and see. You'll see a lot of quotes from him. But the big point about that was his personal journal.
Nice.
Yeah.
Interesting. So how long have you been journaling for?
Well, I probably first started, I think the first journal I have was when I was about 20, and I'm 51 now. However, I don't as much as I'd like to do it 365 days, I'm just, a lot of the stuff I talk about, I'm talking to myself.
Yep.
I know it's difficult. So often I have so many journals around that might have gone for 5 days or 10 days. And I think the last year I did 270 days out of 365, and I thought that was great.
And do you do that because it is that time where you reflect on the rest of the day? And like you've said some really interesting things here about give yourself this 20 minutes in the morning before you grab your phone and before you get caught up in all the negative influences in our life, to sit back and think about what you want, how you feel, the movement of your body, the resting of the mind, before you let the last Instagram post or that email from your boss or that text from that, or these negative, or not always negative, but these influences that want a piece of you. I think it's nice. And so this morning ritual you're talking about, for those out there going, oh shit, I'm so busy, I can't. How long are we talking to do this? Like from the 2 minutes to the cold shower to and say they want to train, they want to go and train at 5 o'clock in the morning. So
look, we could even start with 5 minutes.
Yep. Okay.
Make the bed, write a few things down.
Yep.
And get on your way. I don't think I understand what people are saying, but I guarantee you, if you do this on a regular basis, it will make your life better.
Okay.
So that's, if you can take 5-10 minutes, whatever it is, whatever you got available, and just do that. And it starts off small. It's like we don't start running a marathon. We have to start off small. And this is the same with rituals.
Yep.
Let's just start off, just make your bed.
Yep.
Just make your bed. Doesn't have to be perfect. Don't have to put 1,000 cushions there or anything like that. Just pull out the covers, make it neat. So when you come home at night, you go, wow, I've done that. I've had success in my day. It doesn't matter how bad it is.
Yeah, nice.
And it's the same with the evening. The reason I started is, they say, Greg, you know, people that are more depressed, they're looking backwards. People that are looking forwards all the time suffer more anxiety. Okay, so
can you say that again? The people who are depressed?
People looking backwards, they saw that's more like a depression sort of thing, you know, because you're looking back at what has happened, where anxious people are looking too far into the future.
Got you.
I'm one of those guys.
Yeah.
And as long as I remember, I'd go to sleep with things going around in my head. There's a great quote from Mark Twain. I can't remember it exactly, but pretty much we fight these battles in the future, and most of them never even occur.
That is so true. We'll grab that quote, Morgan, if you can find that and put that in the bottom, that'd be great.
Yeah, and most of those things never come true. So I found I was having these problems. I would have a lot of things going around in my head. Get them out of your head. Some people call it, I think the Buddhists call it the monkey mind. Get it out of your head, get it down on paper. It doesn't have to be, just scribble everything down on paper, what's going on in your head, and then just closing that and go, okay, now it's time to go to sleep.
And your idea with the monkey mind, your idea on journaling is, say I have that classic 2 o'clock in the morning wake up, do you record the monkey mind in that journal as well, or are you only...
Well, that's an interesting thing. Like, I've had players like that go, oh, I woke up and then it's okay. Most of us will wake up for some period of time. When it gets extensive, when it's half an hour and you're tossing and turning, then I suggest to get up.
Yep.
Get up and maybe have a light read of a book or something like that, and then try and go back to sleep, because obviously the sleep pressure isn't there to keep you asleep. So if you're just tossing and turning, then we can get more anxious about, I can't get to sleep. So people get anxious about their anxiety about sleeping.
Yeah. So,
and I've seen that, and it's real. Okay. So we just need to work on calming ourselves and if you are awake for that long extended period of time, then get yourself up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get yourself up and just relax. And it might mean sitting up and then not getting up and watching TV or anything like that. It might mean, just reading a light book under a low light and just going from there. Our grandparents had it pretty good, huh? Like most of them, like I remember my grandparents would always go to sleep with a night light, read a book, and then they'd nod off to sleep.
Yep.
We go with this incredible thing, which is the internet, which is great, but it can take us anywhere.
Absolutely.
So it's a bit different. So we're doing a similar thing with technology that isn't really working for us.
And people don't get that technology works at the speed of the anxiety you've got. So if you're anxious and got anxiety and jumping from topic to topic, the internet will just keep accepting that. Whereas when, like you said, you got a light in one book. You have to read that book. You have to get into the mode of where you're at that moment. And a lot of people don't play in that moment.
And it's nice. And yeah, I mean, being in that present is a problem for us. And I include myself into that. It's hard because we're looking forward, but we're missing out on right now. And yeah, and we see it all the time. Yeah.
I've got a theory that I use, and I'm not saying I'm any expert on this, but I do try to live as I like my stress to be useful for me, not something that consumes me. I've got this thing that where if I've got stress, I sit back and the first question I ask myself is, will I care about this in 7 days' time?
Yeah, and I think that's a great philosophy. Because stress is good.
Exactly.
Yeah, like, I mean, let's not be wrong. I mean, stress is there's a part of stress being great.
Yeah.
And we need that because that's what we're it's
Absolutely,
going to push us forward. It's when it becomes. I think what a lot of us where we really struggle when it becomes this distress, and it's because we feel overwhelmed. So we think that we've got so much going on. That's why I say get it down on paper. Have space between you and the rest of the world.
I like that. And you say start with 5 minutes.
Start with whatever you got.
Is there any science in relation to the morning ritual and how much time you should give yourself before you kick off?
Look, I think...
And not a game kick off, but kick off like run off to training or run off to work or whatever it is.
I don't think there's exact science on it. And I think, but again, even though there's exact science on certain forms of exercise and that sort of stuff, I always get back to it's about you.
Yeah.
It's a case study of one, and that's you. What works for you? Because I know what nutrition might work for me.
Yep.
You might know what works for you. It mightn't be looked on as scientifically perfect, but if that works for me and I'm happy and healthy, then that's okay. And
how open is sport to these theories you've got on morning rituals? And obviously the first reason people come to you is sleep and recovery, because that's one of the things you're very good at. When you start talking to a coach about morning rituals and players writing in journals and all that, what type of responses do you get? Because there's two types of coaches out there. There's the ones that have done the hard yards and Mayweather, and there's the ones who embrace.
Yeah, look, and more and more I do work with coaches on that. I think it's changing. That's why I talk about the holistic athlete.
Yeah.
And this is the missing point a lot with athletes, and it's just about training loads and what they do in the gym and what they do but a happy player, a well-balanced person will play better. I think we forget that athletes are people first.
True.
Okay. And what they're doing is we're preparing them for what they do best. So it doesn't matter. I don't care what we do to get them there. We need to do that. And they have a lot of anxiety. I just imagine we've just finished the rugby league season. But say your contract, you don't have a contract for next year.
Yep.
How has that affected you for the last few months?
Yes.
You can't control that. So one of the things we talk about in journaling and looking at life is, okay, what can you control and what you can't control, and focusing on what you can. And all we can control is ourselves, really, and our perception. But you don't have a contract. Where else in the workplace is it really like that you do not know in a small amount of time whether you're going to be financially able or have a job to pay your mortgage? And that happens to players. I mean, a lot of the time we think all players are rich. That's not true. So I think their difficulties, and there's a lot of stress involved. A lot of players start obviously young, and then they get married, and then they have children. They have relationship pressures as well. So all these strategies are about their life. I find is just very, very important. And it's that looking at the holistic athlete.
And so let's talk about that. What are you, from the three pillars, the sleep, the recovery, and the morning ritual, what are you doing for the holistic athlete?
Well, I think you look at if you look at anyone's performance. Let's look at it. The pillars, I would say, are sleep, exercise, and nutrition. To anyone. So with an athlete, it's what they eat and how they train, and we've got to make sure all those things are aligned. But I actually think if we don't have this sleep area right, I think that's probably the foundation for everyone's performance.
Yeah.
To actually get that right, because it doesn't matter how much recovery you do, and also if you're doing the wrong type of exercise as well, no recovery is going to help that. Yeah, none of our supplements can make up for a poor program and really poor sleep.
Yep.
We can maybe tweak it for a little period of time, but long term we're not going to. Yeah, so very, very much about that is it's education, as far as and I'm finding athletes, if we're speaking about this message and looking at it from a holistic perspective, we're going to have better athletes, and they're going to have longer careers if they look after themselves better. But I think it's the message. See, too often in sport where we're just and there'd be a lot of my fraternity that could be critical that I'm not talking science, and but I'm about getting that athlete to perform to their best. I don't care how it happens.
Yep.
Because I think the science, we know how to train. We need to manage those training loads, monitor the response of how that athlete's training, but also realize that it's just not physiological, there's a sociological area here. How is their life?
Yep.
Yeah, and working with that.
That's a big one, isn't it? Like, you have these players from 7 o'clock in the morning till 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Well, in a club situation and in national team situations like with the Socceroos, we were 6 weeks for the World Cup.
Wow.
Every
Were
day.
families travelling with the team?
No.
Wow.
Every day. Every meal. Every day. And then you're trying to manage that. You've got players, some players that aren't playing. In the World Cup, we only used 15 players.
Okay.
So that means there was 8 other players that didn't get a moment in the World Cup. So there's a lot of management of individuals there to make sure that they stay on track, which is over and above the typical science.
Just off sleep recovery and morning rituals there for a second. How did you run a 6-week campaign with 15 players? Were you pretty much injury-free?
Yeah, we're very fortunate through, I think, very good work by the sports medicine team, good communication with the coaching staff, and a sound program that, during we were based in Turkey first. We were there for 4 weeks, and then a couple of weeks. Unfortunately, we got knocked out in the first part of the World Cup. But we only had one injury in all that time, which was actually a shoulder dislocation in the second game. But we didn't have any soft tissue injuries.
Wow.
And part of that, there's no doubt, part of that's luck. And sometimes, because they trained very, very hard. But I think it came back to good communication between everyone. And but no doubt, as much as I'd like to say it was just great, it was great, but it had a lot to do with what was going on. But there's always that luck.
Because it sounds, although you're putting that off to luck, it sounds like when you bring a human performance program to a team, you're looking at a lot more than what your traditional S&C coach and your traditional, like most teams that we deal with don't have that level of, I could piss some people off here is what I'm trying to say, that you've taken science and used people management and created concepts around human performance that are lifestyle performance, that is sleep performance, that is wellness performance, and a holistic performance.
Yeah.
So it is, and I know that you're very forward thinking in what you do as a sports scientist. Has that changed a lot in the last 10 years? I mean, I still remember when people were running 200s and doing this and that and playing different sports, and when sprinters stop running 10Ks in a training session because, hang on, we sprint, why are we running 10Ks? Are you finding an openness to this holistic and all these different platforms of performance that you talk about?
Yeah, I think I've been fortunate to have success. And then clients that we work with now, often that they'll bring us in, so they, I have that opportunity that they are more open. I think it can be. I think performance can be revolutionized. I think
Here we
can.
go. I'm interested to hear this.
Yeah, I think we can take a much broader spectrum and be more holistic in what we do. I think one of the biggest problems in sport is ego.
Okay.
It's the biggest problem in life, that we need to work collectively and to know who we're working for. For me, I'm working for the player, I'm working for the coach, and I'm working for the franchise.
Yep.
But ultimately,
In that order.
well, I think ultimately you're working for the franchise, okay, because they're your,
Yep.
they're the ones paying the bills, and they need their players looked after. They're paying the wages of the players. I'm very much, we're in the service business, so it's about serving those people. So I've, often when we have clients, I have a lot of people that we've got to answer to.
Yep.
And that's okay. But we have to be very clear. I'm not serving me. I'm serving these
Yep.
people and what is best. So I suppose made a decision a few years ago that I would more be conscious of running our own race based on science, and still looking at the research and looking at what others do and respecting what others do. But I'm not keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
I think we can be. I think sometimes if you only listen to your fraternity, it becomes like an echo chamber. So I was fortunate enough to have people around me that were in different areas, and I think sometimes business 101, bringing that into the sports science field, could be
Yep.
a PhD in sports science. Does that make sense? Like simple concepts that have been done really well in business for years that you would find quite simple, bring that into a sports science focus, then it's going to really make a big difference. So there's things like that I've looked at other fields and trying to bring them back into my field. So that's been, and I suppose that's where it's part of my nature to look at that from a service perspective and to realize, okay, what I want at the end of the day is this player to perform to their potential. I think in life, it's about maximizing performance, but the most important thing is to maximize your potential, what you have. So I find that exciting, and I think that's my mission with anyone not just the best players, but every player that we come in contact with. I think one of the problems with ego in organizations is that there's discrepancy between different departments, and we need to communicate better, and we need to work on this. It's okay to disagree, but at the ultimate, we need to have a shared focus.
Yep.
And I think that's missing in a lot of places. But I don't want to be critical of others. I just think that I feel we are not at the high end of maximizing human potential. I think we can go further. And sometimes if you have success, it can hold you back, because you think, okay, well, we're operating at this level, and but we can probably take it even further.
Interesting. I guess when you're looking at a lot of Australian sports are pretty much Australian, like the AFL, the NRL. I mean, we dominate the world in those
Yep.
sports. So what's driving our sports science in those areas? Moving on from what you've been talking about, if we are like our AFL teams are the best AFL teams in the world, and our NRL teams are the best NRL teams in the world, give or take the odd World Cup where we close partners of mainly Australian athletes.
Yeah.
What is driving, and I guess the NFL and the NHL, they both suffer from that as well, and the NBL. Like, what is driving sport?
Well, I think it's the individuals that are at clubs, and I think the AFL has done very well, and they've been world leading in sports science. What drives a lot of our Australian teams is the salary cap, because we only have set amount of numbers, don't we? So I think that was one of the drivers in the first place, that we needed to keep those people on the field. So then we looked at injury prevention and maximising the performance of those players that we had without injuring them. So that sort of really helped. I mean, there's no doubt when the AIS was a great leader of sports science and management of athletes when it was developed, and there was a lot of great stuff that came out of those. So that gave us a good grounding. I think our education focus in the sports science field is probably one of the best in the world. So we have good grounding. What takes us to that next level, and if you ask me, do I think NRL can go to another level? I actually do.
Okay.
And there's some teams that do it very, very well. You can just see the performance. You know, we just had the grand final. I thought that Roosters' performance was, they looked physically very good.
They were dominant.
Yeah, and so that was a great performance. So I'm just always, even when we've had success, I'm always thinking, okay, just that continual improvement. And I think what drives a lot of these organizations, and maybe the individuals in it, they'll keep driving. But as soon as you take the focus on what's happening somewhere else and just working with your team, trying to push them to the limits. Yeah. But it's a good point that you make. When you are the best in the world, I think it is difficult. Like, we're in football, we're not the best in the world, so we have to grab every little bit to even up the level.
And now, football, for those in Australia, could be called soccer. To
Soccer,
some.
yes, sorry.
No, you're right. Is how much is Australian football embracing sports science?
Oh, I think, well, hopefully quite good, because the last 4 years I was head of sports science for the federation. So
how do you think you went?
Look, I think I think it's okay. I mean, there's always going to be the issues where you've got coaching staff, you've got medical staff, you've got sports science, strength and conditioning, fitness staff, and bringing that together so we've got this shared purpose. Mm-hmm. Often there's conflict when I go around, and I see there's often conflict between the coaching and the sports science staff, because they mightn't listen. And
yep.
But I always ask the question, well, and when I've been in that situation, there's nowhere in a coach's contract that he says he has to listen to me.
Yeah.
It's my job to get him, because I know, okay, I might have some really good information here. I've got good insight. And that's the other thing. Are we presenting insight, or are we just presenting numbers?
Yeah, okay.
That's the thing. Our job is insight, not numbers. Okay, so it's very easy to print off a nice report with a hell of a lot of numbers in it, but what does that mean? So it's truly about insight, and I think that's a problem. So the discrepancy in football, soccer, often comes with the coach being presented with information that isn't presented in a way that he fully can comprehend, because at the end of the day, he just wants to win. So...
And he's not there to analyse sports science. He's there
that's
to be...
our job.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I often say that there's no place in his contract where it says he had to listen to you. Your job is to make a difference for him to listen to you, if you've got a message, and present it that way. Like, I ask the question often, have you sat down with the coach and asked him how he wants his data presented? And often they haven't had that conversation. So it's like me presenting, you might be a very visual person, and I'm presenting you all these numbers.
Pretty graphs for me, please. Yeah, I want the nice, colourful graphs, not the big spreadsheets.
That's exactly right. Yeah. It's a simple conversation because I'm servicing that client. So I think that's a problem. There's a lot of sports science that can tick the box. I'm not interested in ticking the box. I'm interested in making a difference.
Yeah. And when you talk about coaches and teams going away, are you getting the coach to do the morning ritual with you? Are you embracing? Is the coach embracing the sit on the bed, make your bed, little bit of a jiggle before you get up, a bit of cold shower? Like, is it?
Well, look, yeah. I mean, most of the coaches I work with, they probably look at me with but if they do, it's going to help them as well, because they're under enormous stress.
Absolutely.
So I think the
journaling would be very good for a coach.
And it's interesting in respect to that. And I was talking to some people recently about actually monitoring coaches as well, because it makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
And yes, and could they benefit from it? Everyone can benefit from it. So I've worked with some very well-read coaches that do look after themselves in that regard, and they're yes, but it definitely is a message that could make a real difference. I just believe it can make a real difference to everyone.
Yeah, because when you look at corporates, and I mean, it's traditionally when people go into wellness programs and corporates, it's middle management, higher management that get the big ticket stuff outside of the general chit chat. So I guess if you're reporting to a board or a CEO and the CEO is not embracing, the whole morning ritual that you're trying to put across to your management team, and we're talking about anxiety and stress here because when we threw those stats out, what was it,
Enormous,
49% looked tired and 46% had mood and were irritable. If you can take that out of the workplace, you're definitely going to be a fierce competitor to people who have that in their workplace. And so from a sports science perspective, when you walk into a corporate, is it as important for the CEO to embrace what you're talking about as it is the management? That's why I'm sort of working to the stupid question I said, when do the coaches embrace what you do? Like if the coach isn't embracing what the players are doing and the CEO is not embracing what the managers are doing, your job's harder.
Yeah, so, if they haven't bought into it.
Yeah.
It's an absolute no-brainer that a corporation has their executive team monitored well and wants them at the highest end of their performance.
Mm-hmm.
So a CEO would be the number one I'm looking at.
Yep.
If I'm a board, I would want to be knowing the health of my CEO. Now, I think we have a lot of, I'll say it again, tick the box wellness programs.
Yep.
Come in, do blood pressure once a year, and okay, you're off, or give you a free gym membership or that sort of stuff. But who's monitoring you day to day? Who's monitoring you when you have to go into a meeting at 9 a.m. and you've had 4 hours sleep? Are you really on task to make key decisions?
Yeah,
And you've got shareholders involved.
Yep.
You've got employees involved. For me, it doesn't make no sense that we aren't monitoring more and more corporates. Because if I was a board and there was an enormous amount of money involved, I'd want to know that my executive team was physiologically and psychologically at their best. And if they're not at their best, that they're aware of that. So I've used technology which identifies 24/7 where you're at. So you can actually just look and go, okay, my stress levels are really high at this moment. So what that means is you could go into the meeting or walk into the office and rip everyone's head off. But if you're aware, because one of the most important things in life is self-awareness.
Absolutely.
If you're aware and this technology is saying, oh, hang on, I'm at 88 out of 100 stress level, I'm really high here. Okay, that means I can now do something. I can go through some breathing exercises and try and reduce this, but it also tells you you're not on task to make key decisions, and be aware of that in a negotiation or wherever you are. That's business.
Yeah. So this morning ritual concept you were talking about earlier, the 5 to 20 minutes. So I'm an executive and I'm running high octane, I'm stressed and got anxiety. I'm about to go to the meeting like you were just talking about then. What type of rituals do you believe someone like that should do before they walk into a meeting? Have you got
if there are at that top end, and you can
and you run from meeting to meeting and you go, oh, another fucking meeting, geez.
Well, that's where you. Well, firstly, it's all planning.
Yep.
You've got to analyze the situation that this could be a difficult day.
Yep.
Okay, and you are running from place to place. Then you need to put space in between that, and it might be just some simple close your eyes, breathe, reduce your heart rate down, and be aware. See, the worst thing that can happen is an ambush, right?
Yep.
You don't see it happen. The old days where they were there and you were there and you locked horns, that's okay. But when people are jumping out of trees or jumping out of buildings and you don't know who's getting you.
Absolutely, yep.
Worst.
Yep.
So if you're aware, it's like facing a battle front on. If you're not aware of your physiological state and you're not in tune with yourself, then it's now like fighting a war where you don't know who the enemy is. So I think it's key to get to that point. Then you might do some breathing exercises. You might go, hang on, I need this period of time between meetings. People will wait.
Yeah, true. That's so true. You let other people dictate your time a lot, and I guess if you're the CEO, you can go, no, we're going to have an hour between each meeting or whatever.
Or whatever it is, but it just starts, just be aware. Yeah. And that might be the first thing if we're working with the executive. All I want you to do is be aware. Identify when you are at these levels. But it's the key decision makers that need to identify, hang on, if we don't have people in good state, how's their decision-making process?
Yeah.
What's the culture like of where they're at? If they're always at this high stress level.
Speaking of culture, because it's something I'm very passionate about, do you believe sports science owes a lot to culture in a club? Like, is it your job to drive culture?
No, it depends. We have a lot of people coming into, culture is pretty. There's a lot of culture gurus around, isn't there?
There is.
I have a bit of a different view of culture. Look, I know there's team building and working with people, and I've seen some success in that area. I don't think it's a sports science area. I think I collectively call this whole area performance science. Mm-hmm. So I think, yes, it comes from there.
Is that a new degree you're going to start one day? Performance science degree? I'd sign up for that.
well, I think as
I didn't mean to cut you off then. Sorry.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of people in this space. I don't know about the longevity of their work, but because my view of culture is it's individual. Okay, so yes, team building stuff works, but we do know from research that team building can build your team up for this period of time, and then as soon as it's a bit over, you can have your keywords up there and all that sort of stuff, but they can lose their meaning and then you drop down. What I want to work on is each individual and seeing them, because they're going through their proper lifestyle, they're about maximizing their potential, they're about trying to live a good life and make the best of their life. And if you collectively have a group like that, and then the coach brings it together with shared purpose, then you're going to be success. Because then you have a group. So one of the biggest things that, they say misery loves company. Mm-hmm. So just right this minute, anywhere in Australia or anywhere in the world where corporations are working, there's people gossiping about how bad their life is.
Yep.
Now, that's not going to change. But however, if you and I are both about doing our very, very best and living a life, and we have that relationship, when I'm doing that gossiping, you're going to say to me, Craig, is that the way you want to be?
Yep.
Because the grass ain't greener on the other side.
That's so true.
We all think that Google's a fantastic place to work, or we hear that, don't we? But I'm sure there's people at Google that said, hang on, it's not like that. It starts with the individual.
Yeah.
And then a group of individuals going, you know what? I care about you. You want to live a good life. This is what you've explained to me. Well, you're not living that by, gossiping about how bad it is here, because the grass ain't greener on the other side, because you always got to take yourself with you.
Yep. No, true. You've got to take yourself with you. I like that. That should be on a T-shirt or something. Hey?
We can put it on VSC.
I love it. Yeah. Look, mate, just in closing, is there anything that you want to... What's our key outtakes from today on sleep recovery, and not just morning routines? You've talked about rituals.
Look, I think it's very clear that we need to get the evening right.
Yep.
Okay. One of the things we didn't talk about too much, just with sleep, is that it's very important that you get a regular sleep time and a regular wake up time, and don't change too much for the weekend.
Why is that so important?
Just the routine, the body will function.
Yep.
Yeah. So the body clock or
the
circadian rhythm. It's a very interesting area. That whole interesting area of chronobiology. What we know is that if you have a consistent time, say if it's 10 and 6, we need 7 to 8 hours sleep. That's what we really want to aim for. Okay. And if we're not getting that, all right, on the short term, then using an afternoon nap for about 30 minutes can be beneficial, okay, just to extend that. But what we really want to aim for is that key thing, 10 to 6 or 11 to 7, whatever it is. Yep. Basically, work out what time you have to get up and work your way back. Closing off technology nearer the bedtime, keeping the room nice and tidy, nice and cool as well, nice and dark, and make sure you don't have too much electronic stuff going on in your room. And then that's going to set you up for the morning to wake up, go into your morning ritual, which we said, like, it might be right now, making your bed, sitting on the end of the bed for 2 minutes. Yeah. That's it. Writing 3 things in a book. Just go down. You don't need some super duper journal. Just go down and buy yourself an exercise book and just start off with there.
Okay.
And think of it as the story of your life.
Yep.
Think about in 100 years' time, people are going to have this and read. But, Yeah, but write anything in your journal. Don't worry too much about.
But you said we should look at 3 topics.
No, that's some people like, gratitude. There is actually a journal called the Gratitude Journal, or 5-minute journal. No, 5-minute journal it's called, and where you can write what you've 3 things you're grateful for. We're actually bringing out a journal called the 100X Journal. Has a prompt at the top, but I wanted it to be flexible. And you have AM, and you can just write a few things. You don't have to. It's just whatever works for you. But the evening ritual, I think, is important. If you're one that's like me, that has a bit of anxiety, worries about the future, get the things down on paper, get it out of your head, and get to sleep.
Is it important to go back to the ritual, to the journal, and go over what you've written, or is it the process of just documenting where you're at in that part of your life and moving forward?
That's a really good question.
Sorry to bring it in so late when we're wrapping up. But
I think it's a really great thing, not all the time, but to go back. Because sometimes I'll go back through my journal, and you know what you'd find is that often the worst days of your life, a couple of days later, everything's okay.
Yeah.
It's just a rhythm. There's no doubt some of us struggle a bit more than that, okay? But for most of us, the worst day of what you think is a shocking day, have a look. 2 or 3 days later, everything's okay.
Yeah.
And someone once said to me, it was a priest actually, that said, "There's always an Easter Sunday after a Good Friday."
Nice, I like that.
Yeah,
mate. So if we want to find you, you're on Instagram at Dr Craig Duncan.
Yep.
Yeah. Your website is performanceia.com.au.
Yeah, our company's Performance Intelligence Agency.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the website. Yep.
And you do a lot of planning for corporates and planning for teams. You bring in groups of people to facilitate.
Yeah. So we're solution focused.
Mm-hmm.
Anything in performance, we analyze a situation first and see if we can put in a solution.
Yep.
And most of the time, we can make things better.
Nice, I like that. And mate, you did mention a journal before that you were doing one. It will be 100xcoach.com.
Yeah, that's a new community we're starting, 100xcoach.com, and the journal will be available on that, and it's just the 100x journal.
And what type of person is going to be in that community? What are you looking for?
It will start off, a lot of it I'm quite passionate about, sports science graduates and people involved in the fitness industry, and we want to create a community where we can help mentor those people about how to have a career in this business, but also anyone that's interested in performance. But definitely, if you're out there, you want to be involved in sport, you want to be involved in the fitness area, you want to be, have something to give, then very much we want to help.
Well, you do sound like someone that gives a lot. So I want to thank you very much for making the time to come and talk to us today. We've been involved for a long time through teams and athletes, and mate, you're one of the best in the industry, and I really thank you for coming on board.
Thank you for having me, and like I've said to you, body science has always. I'm very passionate about body science, and I never align myself with any products that I don't use myself or don't recommend, and you guys have just always been fantastic and always at the cutting edge of trying to make things better, and that's what resonates with me.
Really, you just like our protein balls for your keto diet.
I do, and the honeycomb protein balls are the best supplement ever made. I need that on record.
Not a problem. Well, thanks for coming on, mate. Look forward to it. I look forward to jumping on board. I wouldn't mind getting you and Dr. Chris McClellan in here one day to really talk up some cool science.
Anytime. He's much smarter than me, Joe.
He uses some big words. Okay, thanks, Steve. That's it from Body Science. Hope everyone enjoyed. If you are looking to follow Craig at Dr Craig Duncan on Insta, check him out. Got some good stuff.
Hey team, we are very excited to bring you the 10-week refresh program with ASN, brought to you by Body Science. And with me I have the beautiful Harriet.
Good afternoon. And yes, we are very excited. So during the 10-week refresh program, I'm going to be covering all things performance nutrition, how to get the most out of your training with the food you eat. And what are you covering, Dan?
Well, Harriet's super smart. I'm not as smart as Harriet. So I'm going to be taking over all the physical stuff. So I'm going to be doing the training, training. I'm going to be teaching people how to get moving, and also, more importantly, I'm going to teach them a little bit about mental health and how that training can affect their mental health, just like food can as well. Is that right, Harriet?
That is correct, Amundo. So if we are going to drop a link below for the registration details, or you can Google the ASN Lifestyle Refresh. Get amongst it.
Get on board. Let's make some changes.
Today's podcast was brought to you by our partners in Fit, Happy and Healthy, ASN, Nutrition Warehouse, DY Discount Vitamins, Fat Burners Only, Evelyn Faye, Mr. Supplement, or find a retailer online at bodyscience.com.au/retailers.